Regular meeting of the West Basin Engineering Operations Committee and special meeting of the Board of Directors. So, Mr. General Manager, if we have a report.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Director Tommy Fabai. Here. Chairman Desi Alvarez.
Here,
Director Gloria Gray.
Here.
Director Don Deere. Here. Director Scott Houston. We have a quorum.
right, so public comment, do we have any public comments today?
We have not received any requests for public comment, though this meeting is held both in person and virtually. If there's any member of the public that would like to speak, please indicate so by raising your virtual hand. And I do not see a request for public comment.
All right, seeing none, we will move on. The next item up is presentations.
Staff has no presentations.
And we do not have any items on the action calendar today, so we move to the information calendar, which is the first item up, the NC Little water recycling facility perimeter fence project update. General Manager.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we wanted to bring a quick update to you today to just provide a little bit of an overview of some of the activities. We do have Jeremiah Shea, our operations analyst 2 for the presentation, and this item begins on packet page 3.
Thank you, BJ, and good afternoon, directors. I'm happy to present this information item today regarding the ECL perimeter fence project status, including updates, some of the recent activities performed by our staff to plan out the project and prepare for the construction phase, as well as a few upcoming project milestones that we wanted to update the committee on, including our anticipated schedule for the remainder of the project in 2026. There is a short presentation for this item beginning on page 5 of your packets. If we could pull that up, thank you. I'll probably reference a few images on these slides as we go through here. As a reminder to the committee, the current Edward C. Little perimeter fence consists of a combination of 8-foot-high steel fencing around the eastern, southern, and western edges of the property, and a concrete block wall of varying height from about 4 feet to 7 foot above grade along the northwestern edge of the property, all of which was installed in 1995 during the original phase 1 construction of the Edward C. Little water recycling facility. As you may recall, in August 2025, staff presented several options to this engineering and operations committee regarding various approaches for addressing the existing perimeter fence repairs. Staff received direction from this committee to pursue a full replacement of the perimeter fencing with a new 10-foot-high curved top steel security fence design, including extending the CMU block wall areas with matching metal fence design and height. After receiving this direction from the committee, in 2025, West Basin staff conducted several site visits to walk the entire perimeter of the Edward C. Little water recycling facility, where our staff documented the conditions, heights, and other details of the existing fence and CMU wall structures. This was to inform the development of the project scope of work. During these site walks, several issues were identified with landscaping located adjacent to the current fence, such as large tree trunks, large branches, shrubs, ground cover, or irrigation system components, which were either one, currently affecting the 8-foot fence. And as you see on the photo here on the right, we have a good example where the tree trunks are physically leaning on the existing fence. And if you saw it in real life, you'd actually see it's almost embedded into the metal itself. So it's part of the fence structure at this point. We also identified issues where several areas of the landscaping were identified as may or potentially impeding the construction of an additional 2 foot in height above the current fence. And so our staff flagged all these areas on a map, and we identified where we would need to address these issues before construction began. And so our goal here was to anticipate any impediments to the construction of the fence and address them as best we could ahead of time, utilizing existing district resources or contracts. I just wanted to stop and give a big shout out to the operations department. They were very helpful with their landscape maintenance contract to walk the site and address these issues with us. And also Jack Cheatham, our engineering intern, he may be more familiar with our fence than anyone in this room. So thank you, Jack, for walking that a couple times for us. In total, 37 locations were identified around the perimeter fence where trees or shrubs are impacting the existing fence or were expected to impede construction of a new 10-foot tall fence. And if we could actually switch to slide 3 real quick, we have a little image here. This is an actual markup of the map that Jack developed by walking around and around and around the site. We located all the issues where we need landscape support, and we mapped it out and presented it to our landscape maintenance contractor. There was a new landscape maintenance contract that began on January 1st, 2026. That's with Mariposa. And so once we had Mariposa on board, we were able to utilize them to provide quotes or let us know if this remediation was included in their existing scope of work. And we utilized Mariposa to evaluate all 37 locations and provide cost estimates to address the most critical items ahead of construction. Several issues were identified as falling under their current scope of work for the landscape maintenance agreement and have subsequently been addressed already in January and February 2026 by Mariposa. Some examples of these are falling trees resulting from some recent storms, overgrown shrubs that required immediate trimming and were impeding the function of the fence currently. However, there were many more critical landscaping issues that were determined not to fall under the current landscaper's scope of work for maintenance, and therefore separate cost estimates were provided by Mariposa to our team to address some of these items, which largely fell into 2 categories. The first category were non-maintenance landscape issues that would impede the removal of the current fence. And so we have categorized those as facility R&R safety issues that we will address through that budget. There was an additional issues identified as non-maintenance landscape issues that would impact the construction of a 2-foot higher fence. So that 10-foot fence option that we want, there were several areas around the fence where there might have been a large branch right over the fence where it's not impacting it now, but to go up 2 more feet, we would have to address that branch. And so we have received quotes from Mariposa to address these issues ahead of construction, and our goal is to do that to prevent construction costs from rising. In parallel with addressing these landscape maintenance items ahead of project construction, staff have also been working to identify any permit or other construction considerations for this project that may be required by the city of El Segundo. We started by performing a review of the LA County parcel maps and some other documents to confirm the ownership of those parking lot areas on the west side of the ECL facility. And I'm sorry, Desiree, if we could flip back to the last slide, there's a better image there. Sorry, the previous slide. Thank you. The image on the left there, you can see there's a red line, and there's the City of El Segundo parking lot on the west-hand side, or the west side. These areas were formerly West Basin-owned property until 1996, when the district granted the parking lot areas to the City of El Segundo. And so we did conduct some additional GIS surveying efforts, and another thank you to our operations staff. Chandler Shields was very helpful in using his GIS skills to map out where our current fence is relative to the property line, which was important for us to determine. And we have determined that that fence is right on that property line. So we are right on the border of West Basin property and City of El Segundo property. We have since met with City of El Segundo building and public works staff to discuss the project scope and receive some feedback on what type of building permits or encroachment permits would be required during construction. And considering that the fence serves as a barrier between West Basin's property and publicly accessible areas owned by the city, it's been determined that plan check submittals approved by the City of El Segundo will be required for this project. Additionally, the city staff informed our team that any fence over 8 foot tall, 8 feet in height, would require a permit approved by the Public Works Director, and their standard height for approval is an 8 foot limit. So, So 8 foot would be the standard limit for their standard plan check. They do require permits and public work approval for the 10 foot option, which we will be exploring with them. And lastly, we did want to let the community know that we have been working to issue an RFP solicitation to the district's on-call engineering consultants to provide engineering support services during this project. The scope of work for these services include developing the final construction specifications and details for the taller fence design, which is a requirement by the City of El Segundo Building Department. The on-call consultant will also assist the district in evaluating the structural feasibility of attaching a metal fence to the existing concrete wall or determine an alternative construction method if that's preferred. They will also develop the connection details for disconnecting and reconnecting the fence to existing structures such as pedestrian and vehicular gates, and the CMU concrete wall. Additionally, the on-call consultant will provide support services during the project's construction phase, including preparation of addenda and responses to requests for information during bidding, review of shop drawings, and site visits and other special inspections. A non-mandatory pre-proposal meeting was held on February 9th, 2026, and proposals were due from the on-call consultants on February 12th, 2026. One proposal was received from the on-call consultants, and staff are currently reviewing that proposal. And I apologize, this information, we just received the bids, and so it's not included in the information packet in front of you here. The project's kickoff meeting with the selected on-call consultant is tentatively scheduled for next week on February 24th, 2026. And the deadline for the delivery of the final bid package to West Basin is April 30th, 2026. And then if we're looking ahead to some of the upcoming milestones and next steps for the project, on the screen up here, we see for February and March this month, we will be making that selection of the on-call engineering consultant for the design and construction support. We will be working with Mariposa, the landscape maintenance contractor, to address all those landscaping issues impacting the current fence and which may impact construction of a larger fence. In April and May 2026, we will work with the design consultant to develop the final project design documents and the construction scope of work and issue the construction RFP. We anticipate coming back to this committee in June 2026 for the award of the construction contract. And then we will begin the construction phase in June or July, and we anticipate the project finishing around August 2026. That concludes my update, and I'm happy to answer any of the questions that the committee has.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
No questions.
Any questions? Director Gray, do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
I don't have any questions, you have one. That the city of Ostragon is requiring a permit from the lead in charge of that permit too.
If we want to go to the 10-foot height, we're being told that a permit's required. If we stay at an 8-foot height, there's no permit required. That's what we're being told by the city. We've tasked our design consultant to develop options for both the 8-foot and the 10-foot height so that we can present those options to the board with all the cost considerations included.
And Jeremiah, presumably there should be a cost for that permit specifically.
Yes, that's my assumption.
That is a requirement permit to make improvements on the one property that they should be. I didn't realize that that was now part of the city of Ostragon. So I'd say, why don't you repair your fence?
We can certainly have that discussion with the city about maybe a shared cost for the portion that sits on their city property.
Yeah. Yes, I don't think, I wasn't aware of that. In fact, the whole perimeter fence is out on our property.
You know, Director, obviously nothing's easy in 2025. I'd like to commend staff for identifying many of these issues, some of which extend from 1990s that obviously none of us were aware of, but also I'd rather spend staff's time now working through some of these issues versus when we have a contractor under contract and in the field. So I appreciate the time that they've taken to do the due diligence to work out some of these small issues that may have otherwise become bigger issues when we actually get out there to install them.
But I don't have any questions. Thank you. So we'll move on to next item, which is the update on the Encino fire protection system.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, as we always enjoy doing, we try to identify items that our interns are working on and building up a great deal of experience here at West Basin, but also out in the field. So today we do have Jack Cheatham here for the presentation. He is our intern and now fence expert. And this item begins on packet page 10.
Thank you, EJ. Good afternoon, directors. Today I'm going to be presenting closeout for the ECL Fire Protection Systems Improvement Project, our capital improvement projects 10-130. And if you want to follow along, the PowerPoint presentation starts on page 13. Next slide, please. Just a brief project overview. Our goal of this project was to remove and replace the original fire alarm system with a non-proprietary system. This new system installed will help lower deficiencies, ensure safety across the whole site, and streamline the maintenance process on the fire system. The project work, as you look on the map, consisted of 8 different areas across the whole facility, with the majority of the work occurring in the visitor center, followed by the sludge dewatering building, reverse osmosis building, ozone building, north and west electrical load center, and Title 22 and barrier filter facility. And it's important to note that all 8 buildings, all the devices in these buildings connect back to the main panel in the visitor center. Next slide. Just to expand on the scope of work, originally it was the Johnson Controls fire protection system, which was the proprietary system. And we are now using the Honeywell Silent Night system, which is the non-proprietary system. There were 274 devices installed across the whole facility, with 171 of these devices coming in the visitor center. There's a new annunciator panel in the control room, which is hooked directly up to the control panel in the electrical room of the visitor center. And this helps communicate with the operator what's any issues going on the site or the whole fire system. And there are new dedicated circuits for the new fire protection system. Next slide. Our notice to proceed for the project schedule was given out on July 31st of 2025 with a 90 calendar day contract duration. And our notice of completion was filed on January 22nd, 2026 with a 175 calendar day total. As you remember, we came to the board in October requesting a change order for missing devices and conduit. And we were given an 85-day calendar day non-compensable time extension for the project. And moving on to the budget, original award was $264,715 for the construction cost with a 10% contingency. And following our board meeting in October, $92,000 of additional contingency was added. And at the end of the project, the total amount of change orders totaled to $90,293. And we now have a remaining contingency of $28,177 left for the project. Next slide. Here's some construction photographs taken throughout the project. These ones deal with mainly the removal and replacement part of the project. So you can see on the left side, those are our old existing Johnson Control pole station and strobe. And on the right of that picture, you can see the new Honeywell fire strobe and pole station. And if you look at the top right-hand side of the page, you can see the old duct detector and new duct detector in place. And same goes with the smoke detector. You can see the old Johnson Controls smoke detector along with the new smoke detector in the bottom right corner. Next slide. In this photo, you can see the solids handling facility. This was related to the change order 1 for the missing conduit and devices. You can see this pictured in the left-hand side. There's missing conduit, where as in the design, it was called that there was a conduit originally. So with this change order, we put in new conduit for these devices in order to sync up to our control panel. And you can see that on the right-hand side. And on the right picture on the left-hand side. And on the right side, you can see one of the offices in the visitor center. You could see a sprinkler and a sensor device. And then on the bottom, you could see that a smoke detector and strobe was added in addition to the sprinkler. Previous to our October meeting, we had a lot of confusion between the sensor device and the smoke detector, which are both labeled SD, especially on the older plans, and they both look very alike. So we had a lot of confusion, and this stemmed a lot of the change order results and purchase of more smoke detectors for these rooms. Next slide. This is a picture on the left-hand side of us or the contractor, West Coast Fire, demolishing that existing panel. This one happened to be in our RO building. And they were getting ready to replace it with the new power supply from Honeywell. And the picture on the right is a picture of our inspection date on the 23rd, right before Christmas, where we passed our inspection successfully. And yeah, that's our El Segundo fire inspector. His name was Justin. Next slide. We're gonna, next steps for the project, we've successfully turned it over to the operations department. And our 1-year monitoring agreement was signed between West Coast Fire and Jacobs. And we are currently waiting for a retention release with the contractor. And we're expecting this in March of 2026. Next slide. And with that being said, I'll take any questions you have for the project, and I appreciate the time.
I have a couple of questions. Chair, thank you. Can you go back to your slides, where it puts the Johnson Controls and then the other technology one? The Honeywell, yeah. So two side by side? Yeah. Okay, so with that new Silent Night system, and it says non-proprietary, does the non-proprietary mean that, you know, these systems you can get off the shelf, you know, at any given moment, you know, smart parts off the shelf, and you don't have to, I mean, really do with the Johnson Controls stuff, because you pretty much have to go through Johnson Controls to get their actual equipment, right?
Yeah.
So this is different. Non-proprietary is different. You can get it off the shelf.
Yeah, that's correct, Director. West Basin has long dealt with issues associated with availability from Johnson Controls and of course pricing, and you are at their mercy when it comes to pricing and availability. We dealt with this at WRD as well, who also had a Johnson Controls system. The board directed staff, I think, over a year ago, to take this approach where we could wean off of proprietary structures, specifically so that we could not only have easier access to products that are available through anybody, but also on the monitoring system. I believe that can be bid out, and you can have multiple companies that can do the monitoring, whereas in the Johnson Control scenario, you can't have anybody else monitor your system, or I should say their system.
No, I think it's a great job that we're not binding our hands on, you know, on one system, and, you know, we're more thinking out of the box here.
I would commend the board from input they've given us in previous years on different projects to look for those opportunities where we can move away from a proprietary scenario. And in fact, I would point to our recent JMM microfiltration upgrade. That one's obviously goes back maybe a decade or so, but that's an industry where it's traditionally been proprietary microfiltration technologies. And West Basin was one of the first adopters of a system that is not proprietary. We can use several types of membrane manufactured products within that system. And of course, that's the one that's come online just in the last year or so. But that's just an example, I think, where staff has been empowered by the board to go out and seek these opportunities to move away from proprietary systems, because we long recognize after 30 years, they're not necessarily the most cost effective. They're not necessarily best for long-term customer relations, because they don't have to service you the way that competitive or a company that has to compete for your business might service you. So unless we're told otherwise by this committee and the board, we're going to continue to seek opportunities to move away from proprietary type technologies.
But and my last thing is, are we still meeting like in parallel paths? Are we still meeting like the Build American, Buy American when it comes to these type of parts and stuff?
I don't have an answer on this specific equipment. I don't know if staff does, but I will say that in more recent months, we've heard the board loud and clear, about the preference for Buy American, and what we are intending to do in each and every case is anything that does come before the board, where there's a purchase, primarily purchases, obviously, would be to make sure it's very clear whether a product being considered by the board is American made or isn't, and allow the board to differentiate whether the price difference for an American made product versus a non-American made product is worth the value. And so, within our look ahead in the monthly update that's follow this item, I'll talk a little bit about that exact example for reverse osmosis membrane purchases that we're looking to do. But to your specific question, staff is I think taking a renewed interest in ensuring that every procurement we do at least considers the Buy American preference, even if what we end up bringing to the committee and board isn't necessarily American made because it doesn't exist. But we're going to make every attempt to make sure that what you have an option to is Buy American if it's available.
Thanks, sir.
Director, I would just add that we, and I'll give the credit to our finance and procurement team. They've actually developed documents that'll be incorporated into the procurement process and solicitation process, so we can show our preference for American-made products. And then, of course, any item that comes before the committee or board will actually identify what is manufactured here in America and what is not, and the board will actually have that choice in pursuing any sort of procurement.
Thank you.
Very good. Very great. Any comments?
No, thank you, Director Alvarez. Thank you.
I don't have any further comments. My only observation would be the conversation we'll have later about Buy American. So let's move on then to the next item, which is the engineering operations update.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is a quarterly water distribution and compliance update. And for the presentation, we do have Uzi Daniel, our manager of operations, as well as Jamie Malpede, our water quality and environmental compliance supervisor. This item begins on packet page 22.
I did want to start this item off on the look ahead item, if I could. As you may recall from previous months, the CIP write-ups are included in the memo. This month, we are obviously focusing on the water distribution portion of our monthly update, but specifically, I wanted to introduce the first two slides and into this conversation that we're just talking about. As a look ahead next month, or I should say in coming months, we will be coming to the board with a procurement for reverse osmosis membrane to be installed at the JMM facility in order to continue meeting our contractual obligations for their boiler feed system. But I did want to take a few minutes just to discuss the way that we've structured this procurement, and because it is a little bit different. Specifically for speed, we are, for some constituents, if not exceeding our contractual obligation to JMM. So what you'll see in this award is we've designed a preference for manufacturers that can deliver faster than 30 days. And so staff has come up with a unique application that we won't necessarily use in every RO procurement, but because we do desire to get these membranes replaced as quickly as possible, what we've done is a normal delivery day, maybe 60 days from notice to proceed. In this case, we have offered an evaluated incentive for anybody that can deliver them faster than 60 days. So for instance, if a company can commit to delivering them within 30 days or perhaps 2 weeks for an evaluation perspective, we will give them a discount consideration for the speed at which they can deliver that membrane. Secondly, to the point of Buy American, it was our previous impression that all of these reverse osmosis membranes were manufactured offshore. In fact, I think in subsequent previous RO procurements, staff had actually reported that none of these were manufactured onshore. Well, we've since learned that one manufacturer out of San Diego does meet ABA certification requirements for onshore manufacturing. And so we have made that preference very clear in this document. We've asked all proposers to identify whether they are or are not manufactured in the United States. However, we haven't necessarily applied a structure that incentivizes that. We suspect there's only one manufacturer of our 3 manufacturers that are going to be made in America. And we want to make sure that that's absolutely highlighted when we get these proposals. But we didn't make that a requirement of participation because that would limit our competition, obviously. And so what we intend to bring to the committee and board for consideration will be the proposals. And those proposals will be whatever pricing they've identified. But there should be at least one made in America product. And ultimately, if they are the lowest cost product, then it's a win-win situation. If they are not necessarily the lowest cost product, what we would be providing to the committee is to consider whether that cost difference is worth the American-made product. And so we would be looking for the committee to weigh in on the final bid results and to determine whether or not the cost outweighs the location of manufacturing. And so partially it was done this way because of the speed at which we're trying to get these delivered. We didn't want to overcomplicate the bid process with a new structure. But again, I think this is just a reflection that the staff is being mindful of the Buy American preference that the committee and board have expressed, and B, we're also mindful of the cost and the speed at which this particular procurement needs to come in. But I do think that we're going to end up getting some very good pricing and potentially good pricing on American-made products.
So to that end, we've talked about this a lot in the past. And the perspective we're now looking for was a little bit different than the perspective that brought in the past. The past has always been very much more mindful about the overall cost, even though sometimes we do make allowances for cost differentials in order to promote certain types of practices and products. And I think it is in the best interest of all of us to promote product development in America by American workers. So to that end, it would be best if your recommendation came forward saying the recommendation is to the lowest competitor that's made in America, even though that may not be the lowest overall. And they give us the option to say, but there are other non-made in America products that you can go more to, and your cost savings may be this. But the recommendation should not be coming forward on the basis of just the lowest cost. And say, but we have a made in America product, I would argue that you should take the reverse cost. You're already at the beginning of your presentation making allotments for manufacturers and vendors who can deliver within 30 days, etc., and exercising a certain amount of preference to those vendors. So in the same sense, I would suggest to exercise a preference to a made in America product and present it that way as opposed to the other way.
Mr. Chairman, our hope is to provide a very transparent process and provide the committee and board with the information needed to make the best decision for the committee and board. When I think about some of these decisions, when you look at an American-made product versus a foreign-made product, you also have to look at performance of the different products. There's going to be different situations where the recommendation from staff may not be as straightforward or easy, But again, what we hope to do is show you the compilation of all of the different products that are available to us and talk and have a dialogue about what those products are, what they cost, and where performance is an issue. And I can think of several examples of times where we've actually brought equipment that would be utilized at ECL where the cheapest product alone was not selected or was not recommended, and it was agreed upon by the committee and board as well as staff that certain equipment warranted spending more. But what we want to do is provide the committee and board with all of the information relevant and really do the homework before we come in, so you can see exactly what was made in America and what has not. And I would say that though we put forward a good effort to get that information and bring that in each instance, we haven't always come through. And so what we're hoping to do is start that process in the procurement process, and then have staff be able to deliver that information to you here in the committee. I can't promise you that staff will always be able to come in and clearly say that, yes, this is the recommendation is the American-made product, and it's the cheapest American-made product. What we can tell you is what the American-made product is and what is the cheapest. But in some cases, staff will possibly have an outside recommendation based off of the current situation that is called for. So I am happy to discuss this with the chair offline or give feedback today, but really our process is built towards transparency and getting you the information that you need to make the decisions that the committee and board need to make.
Very much appreciate that the information that is brought forward should be as transparent as possible. And what I'm asking for is that in the same way that we're talking about promoting certain practices, which is you can come forward and say, we are going to give a preference or some kind of bonus points in the evaluation process to provide up to a vendor they can deliver within a shorter time frame. For the same type of acknowledgement of a vendor who made an American product. So if that made in America product income is higher, that still would become in effect. And assuming that it meets the specification, if it doesn't meet the specification, that's a different item. Meets the specification, that's a little bit more, that should still be the one that says, this is the Native American product that you want. And then alternatively, you could just Native American, that also meets the specification. Pretty straightforward, transparent process, and consistent with your intent to show some kind of difference to certain practices would be in the best interest of the district. So just like we're interested in promoting something that should be delivered in a quarter time frame, we're interested in promoting Native American products.
Thank you for that clarification. I think we're on the same page.
Yeah, if I could offer, Director, just from past procurement experiences, I think in one of our last procurements, there was a $50,000 to $60,000 difference between the lowest cost and the next lowest cost. And so one thing that we're obviously very cognizant of is if one of those products, if, let's say in that scenario, the more expensive product at $50,000 more was made in America, well, we wouldn't want to presume that Word is willing to pay $50,000 more. That's ultimately up to the board to decide. And so I hear what you're saying. You would like the structure of the recommendation to be to defer to the Made in America product, even if that may be at a price point that the committee doesn't desire.
And then here's your
Alternative.
alternative.
Yep, understood. Easy enough.
Any other comments?
Nope.
Director Gray, do you have any comments?
No, thank you.
Go ahead and move on.
Oh, and with that, I'll turn it over to Uzi Dan.
Before you lose it again.
That's right.
Somebody else to step up.
Shut up all the mics. Thank you. Good afternoon, directors. This is our quarterly update from the Water Quality Compliance Distribution Team. A couple of highlights. We did, and I'll cover a couple of these and then get to the water quality. We had some good work done. In fact, Frank is out, but we have some of his team right here, Chandler and John. So a large cross-connection event took place at Hollywood Park. It's, you probably aware, Hollywood Park is a large development. They are still connecting to recycled water. They welcome that. A lot of different mixed uses going on there. And so it's very, I think there's a lot of opportunities for us to get over there and see all the different uses of recycled water and how people still appreciate any water resource they could get. Also caught up, our permit requires dual pumps to be inspected annually. That took place in this last quarter. We're seeing right now our turbidity levels coming into the plant have been pretty stable until the recent rains. And I looked today, we're back down to about 12 NTU. It's just a natural part of that. There's so much infiltration that occurs. And we'll go over like a little bit of the sewer dynamics. But we see that coming on our end, but so far we have not had any compliance issues as a result of that. And what I'd like to do then is proceed for the presentation. We can, right here, we already covered this items with Eric, and I'll look ahead. So Jamie wants to go ahead and handle the water quality. Great.
Good afternoon, directors. This slide shows the Hyperion outfall effluent in comparison to the samples we take at ECL's influent for total suspended solids. Samples looking good. We are well below the 30 milligrams per liter monthly average limit for both. Next slide, please. And this one shows the Hyperion outfall effluent compared to the ECL influent turbidity. Again, well under the limit of 100 milligrams per liter, and very close to each other, comparing each. Next slide, please. This is a comparison of the Hyperion outfall effluent versus the ECL influent ammonia. Again, under the Hyperion has a limit for this. We do not. Hyperion's limit is 58 milligrams per liter, and both are, us and them are below that limit. Next slide, please. This is a summary of some of the environmental compliance activities for the fourth quarter. We have our monthly barrier log reduction value reports, our quarterly sewer surcharge payments, our annual recycled water and Title 22 fees, and our stormwater reports for that the previous 6 month period. Recently, we turned in our reports, our quarterly 4 reports for Title 22 barrier and brine permits. We also have annual reports due coming up between March and April for each of these permits, as well as a lot of hazardous materials reporting, including the California Environmental Reporting System, EDQ, and the biannual reports. We also have scheduled our annual check-in with our regulators that we interact with from the regional board, Department of Public Health, and that is for March 3rd. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we just paid our sewer surcharges. We're bringing up like a sewer reporting 101, just as an information for you. And the reason why this is timely is because LA County Sanitation District has notified all their customers, commercial, industrial, and residential, that they will be increasing their fees between 2027 and 2031. So we have permits with LA County Sanitation District. They have their regulating authority, and they have their own ordinance that oversees their dischargers. It's called an industrial wastewater discharge permit. Our facilities, ECL and Carson, are considered industrial wastewater dischargers. We have those two facilities, but we have 3 permits. The next permit is our actual, for our distribution system. We call it our flushed sewer permit. It's a portable meter that kind of fits to a hydrant. And we can use it at multiple locations as long as we get it pre-approved from LA County Sanitation District. Because this is an odd nature for this type of meter to be permitted, it goes under the Carson facility. And I'll show you coming up why we need to do that. We are required semi-annually to self-report. We report for flow, pH, dissolved sulfides, COD, and TSS. We're also required to do an annual surcharge report where we tell them how much we have to pay. Or they tell us how much we have to pay based on peak flows, annual flows, and sewer strength, which is pounds of COD and TSS, per 1,000 pounds of COD and TSS. Next slide, please. So this is the cost breakdown. For ECL, we pay about $24,000 to $25,000 per year. For Carson, because the distribution flush to sewer meter is under that, we end up paying about $90,000 per year. As I mentioned, these rates are going to be increasing this coming next year. The first year, 20%, then 14%, 12, 11, and 10% after that. There's currently going to be public hearings for each district. They should be taking place in May. The reason for these increased costs is because LA County Sanitation District has seen an increase at over 54% of their operational costs over the last 5 years. Next slide, please. The compliance is looked at differently with LA County Sanitation Districts. It's not a one violation and done. They do things like what's called a chronic violation criteria or a technical review criteria, where they base it on a percentage of samples that are above their limits. If we are in non-compliance, they can deem us significant non-compliant, which means that we have our facility published in the newspaper. So if we were to exceed our COD or our pH more than 66% of the time, they would put West Basin in a little advertisement section of the LA Times. With this permit, we're also required to do annual meter calibrations for all the meters that meter the effluent or the sewage discharge. We are also required just recently, as we've discussed in, I think, a couple previous meetings ago, a stormwater management plan. So they are now focusing on the stormwater that's infiltrating the sewer system. And they're trying to reduce that as much as possible. So they're making us put in best management practices to prevent any rainwater from intruding. And with that, I'll pass back over to Uzi.
Thank you, Jamie. Next slide, please. And next slide, please. This gets into some of our routine information here. You can see our activities in the distribution system. John helps oversee that under Frank. And and some of you may notice a lot of activity. I know there's a comment about Inframark out in the field. We're really doing a heavy duty valve exercising right now. Pump station startup took a lot of time away, and that's just the nature of it. We sort of reallocate resources. So we're getting caught up with still an intent to meet our goal, as we do every year, for exercising of all the different valves, blow-offs, whatnot, in between, of course, normal function and emergency response. Next slide, please. We have Chandler here, who's been overseeing, doing a great job as the project manager of our cathodic protection survey. That is best management practices to do that every few years. And there was a larger project done by the engineering department installing, reviewing these. And so the survey goes out, looks at these, looks at the conditions of these. It's a group effort, some training. And we're actually expecting the technical memo any day now. That will give us the condition of all of these. They'll range from things that we or our distribution operator can repair, small things, maybe a wire came loose, to maybe even learning a lot of the information where we might need a larger repair, or even evaluate the system in general. And if we want to go to the next slide, I think what's great, especially with Chandler's been managing a lot of information in our GIS system, we can actually, we're working to track this, to enter this in the system. So later it becomes something that we can evaluate, analyze that data, pinpoint it. We can look at certain areas. We could start, a lot of times I think we collect data, and we hate to just collect data for data's sake, but we can collect it and do something with it and use it to make the right decisions. I think that's very valuable to the district and to the public. And this is a perfect example of that. After we get the report and whatnot, it goes through a report back to this board. Next slide, please. You want to continue, Desiree, thank you. Or okay, perfect. Our potable water update, also somewhat routine. I think you've seen a lot of these before. We did get a nice pat on the back from a couple of both our purveyors and MWD. So I'd like to thank my staff for that. We really do we value customer service. We recognize that our retailers serve our public as well. And one of them I'll call to attention. The Finance Committee yesterday heard West Basin 30 an issue. Matt presented that on a small refund of the reliability surcharge at West Basin 30. And we're continuing to work with MWD also on correcting some of the issues to prevent any further issues there. Also in our Title 22 purveyor program, that's where we help our purveyors put together their water quality reports annually. We'll present to the board in the future that those will start to be required twice a year. So we might want to look at how we manage that program, and we'll present that information. If you'd like to, next slide, please. This I know is also a repeat that can be in the finance packet, but we like to present it here. I think it's no surprise that during all these, that you hate to complain about rain in Southern California, right? But it does impact our water use. I will tell you, it impacts it even like the golf course program. They just don't need a lot of water right now. So we're trying to test things that impacts us as well too. But I guess it's all good news for the drought and water conservation. And you see that reflected here in our usage. And I believe that's it. We're happy to answer any questions. And we have some of our experts on hand if needed.
Any questions?
Questions?
Director Gray?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. So I think that brings us to the end of our town report. Any comments from the directors? Director Pavek?
No comments.
Director Jeter? No comment. Director Gray?
No comments. Thank you.
Any comment? And with that, we are adjourned.
Thank you for the reports, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.